while over the last couple of days on your, on your platform so that people can know exactly what happened. But let me tell you from a parental standpoint, a parental observer of my son walking through this. I'll never forget the day when we're sitting outside of the courtroom getting ready for court to reconvene. And imagine the only independent witness, which should have been the only objective witness in this case, was a gentleman by the name of Sean Kelly. Interestingly enough, the only person that would be able to have an unbiased viewpoint of what actually happened. Imagine that the prosecution did not want to call that witness. Why? This is the only independent witness, but yet you don't want to call this person because obviously his bird's eye view will not support what you want the narrative to be. And so when we sat outside, my wife and I, we saw this gentleman come in and we sat down and it was identified for us that, oh, this is Mr. Sean Kelly. He's sitting across from us on the other side of the hallway. And as we sat there, the prosecution came out, one of their detectives or investigators rather, and one of the prosecutors, they took this gentleman, they went upstairs, I believe it was to the 14th floor at that time. By the time this man came down, the witness they did not want to call, this man came down and his testimony became so embellished with other nonsense that people who saw it just looked at it and said, this is crazy. So I saw these kind of things going on all throughout this case. People trying to bury evidence, not trying, burying evidence, a judge that refused to allow certain things to come into the courtroom or to be said and was totally biased on the part of the prosecution. So the whole thing just stunk of a setup.
Just one last question, because you've made me think of this. But if your son was not responsible for Megan Thee Stallion being shot, we do know that indisputably she was shot. Who shot her?
First of all, the whole idea of her being shot is a speculation. That's a speculation. It's to this point has not been proven that she was even shot. And I want to make it really clear because I'm asked questions a lot as it regards to Megan. Megan is a young woman. I'm a father. I don't have any animosity to this girl at all. We pray for her. I've said that publicly on several occasions. My son included in our prayers. We have prayed for her on many occasions. So anything that I have to say is not to put her down, make her look like this person or that person. But the reality is that in all of this, how can you have a situation where in pretrial, the police, LAPD, says that the bullet fragments they had collected from the hospital just mysteriously vanishes. It goes missing. I would think that evidence is something that is protected in any police department, but they just mysteriously go missing. So there's no bullet fragments to be presented at trial. You have a situation where a gun is shot, and the gun, which is supposed to be your main piece of evidence, does not even show up at court, but some picture of a weapon that resembles or is the type of weapon they say that was used. The weapon does not show up at court. There is absolutely no, we hear this point of 0.1% of his DNA on the gun. Do you know what that actually means when you investigate it? That over 1.5 billion black people on the planet could have been their DNA. Yet my son is convicted for having used this gun, where an expert witness from the LAPD gets in there and he testifies as an expert of how many pounds of pressure it takes to shoot this gun and to shoot it 1, 2, 3 times and on and on and on. Yet, the only evidence you have could fit the profile of 1.5 billion black people on planet Earth. The whole thing stinks of a conspiracy and it stinks of a cover-up.
Okay, let me turn to Representative Luna. You've taken up this case and you've done it at a time when Drake has shared a petition to have Tory Lanez released. Chris Brown posted Free Tory on his Instagram story. Kanye West has supported his release as well. I want to play, before I get your explanation for why you've taken up this case, I want to play, this is a version of events from Megan Thee Stallion herself, from her own documentary about what she says happened.
We left to go home. I was in the car with Tory and his driver and Kelsey. We are all arguing. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I knew I was talking shit, and he probably was a little offended. I tried to get out the car one time. I'm over this shit. They was like, Megan, get back in the car, get back in the car. We almost to your house. I get out the car again. I ain't even got shit on. I just got on a swimsuit. And I'm walking off, and this motherfucker just started hollering at me. He was like, dance, bitch.
It's a very dramatic sort of recounting there in animated form of what happened. She then talked about it again in an interview with Gayle King on CBS, the morning show there, in 2022. Let's take a look at this.
So I get out the car and it's like everything happens so fast. And all I hear is this man screaming, he said, dance, and he started shooting. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like he shot a couple of times. And I was so scared. I didn't even want to move. I didn't want to move too quick, like, cause I'm like, oh my God, if I take the wrong step, I don't know if he can shoot something that's like super important. I don't know if he could shoot me and kill me, like.
And the final clip I want to play, this is where, in her own documentary again, she talks about that interview and admits she may not have been entirely truthful. Let's take a look at this.
Yes, bitch, I lied to Gayle King, bitch. First of all, I didn't know that bitch was even gonna ask me about that shit. Bitch, I always want to talk about this shooting. Why'd you ask me about fucking Tory? That's not what this is about. Even if I was, I fucked once, maybe twice on a drunk night. Bitch, you kept catching me out of my fucking mind.
Now, I don't think you need to be a conspiracy theorist, Representative Luna, to see there's a lot of inconsistency going on here. You know, she denied to Gayle King that there was any relationship with Tory. She then admits that there had been, that she lied. She doesn't admit to lying about the circumstances of the shooting, but certainly this goes to the heart of her veracity. Why have you taken up this case?
Well, first of all, Piers, thank you so much for having us on to discuss this. And I just want to applaud you and your outlet for actually being able to showcase some of the facts here. Look, I don't have any connections to the rap industry, Mr. West, Mr. Brown. The only people that I really know involved in this are Miss Amber Rose, who actually initially flagged this for me and connected me with Tory's attorney. And when I looked at the evidence, and remember, I'm a member of House Oversight and Accountability, and I actually am the chairwoman of a task force that conducts investigations, most notably into the assassination of John F. Kennedy. So I'm all about the facts. And what I can tell you is that the evidence in this case overwhelmingly speaks to the fact that Mr. Lanez is actually being incarcerated, I would say, as an innocent man. And what I can tell you is, you know, even to your question on what happened with who indeed may have pulled the trigger and, allegedly shot Megan Thee Stallion. Look, I don't know Miss Stallion, but what I can tell you is that the evidence says that there are no bullet fragments and that there are x-rays that the legal team, Mr. Lane's team, actually has that we'll be presenting. What I can also tell you is based on the evidence that I've seen, again, that number 0.01% DNA match, alleging that it's Mr. Lane's, when in actuality, they actually did not choose to test the other 4 individuals there. No fingerprints found on the magazine. By any arguable case, if this was a murder trial, he would actually be acquitted because there is no evidence. And so what I will tell you is, one of the things that people ask is, well, why are you getting involved as a federal representative when this is a California state? He's not from, Florida here, or he's not represented by a Florida member of Congress. What purview do you have? And what I will say, Piers, is that I have a platform and I have the ability on a federal level to impact prison reform. And what I can tell you is everything in this case, I don't believe that he was actually given due process. I believe it was a stacked trial. I believe the evidence speaks for itself. And I am willing to actually cross party lines to work with the Democrats to secure pardon from Governor Newsom's office. And we're currently in the process of setting up talks with Governor Newsom. I do think that he is going to do the right thing. I think that the evidence speaks for itself. I didn't know that Drake had posted that petition, but what I will tell you is that that was the right thing for him to do. And I hope more women specifically in the rap community can come forward and speak to this truth, because as you heard from Miss Stallion herself, she admitted to lying to Gayle King. What I will also tell you is I'm also have been informed that there's actually ring footage, and that will likely also be released here pretty soon. I know we are helping to put the evidence out there to the American people. But I do believe that this is really a terrible case, and what was done to this family is unacceptable. And I will be continuing to push for his full pardon. I think that people owe them an apology. And furthermore, I'd like to finally say this. So that I actually spoke to Mr. Lanez on the phone in prison yesterday, actually. And he is actually going to get very involved in criminal justice reform to ensure that this doesn't happen to other people, because in his case, he has an incredible family supporting him. He has the financial backing to fight this, but many people don't. And so that's where we are going to continue to champion these causes at the federal level, even all the way to the White House and in Washington, D.C.
Well, I'd love to talk to him myself. It does sound a fascinating story. Just before I let you go, just to be clear, do you actually think a gun was fired at all then? Or could that in itself be in question? And if it was fired, who do you think fired it?
I don't know who fired it, but what I will tell you is that based on the evidence that I've seen and that the Tory's attorneys will be presenting to the American people, I think that there are a lot of things in question. And I would say that, look, Piers, you know that I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I grew up in a very rough area. I was at a high school where there was a gang shooting. When someone gets shot, there's evidence of that. My husband was shot in Afghanistan in 2014, and the evidence isn't lining up.
So you do not think she was actually shot?
I'm not a criminal investigator in that sense. So I'm just going to go on record for saying that the evidence as of right now is showing that there are no bullet fragments that have been presented, which I'll let people assume what they will not.
Okay, so final question for you, Sonstar.
Can I speak?
Sonstar, I was going to come to you.
Can I just speak really quickly to that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting going back that there was a time when all of this nothing was really being said about it amongst the party that was there on that particular night. Then an article appeared in the Los Angeles Times, okay? It wasn't us that put it out. The Los Angeles Times spoke to the fact that a doctor, I believe it's a Lafredo, who was the emergency physician on duty that night when she was brought to the hospital, he said, and the Los Angeles Times carried it, that she sustained lacerations that were consistent with being cut by glass, okay? So somebody now went online and commented or said something about that fact that the Los Angeles Times carried this. This is when, from the other side now, she came out accusing my son, you shot me, you shot me, you shot me. Later on down, we have so-called expert testimony coming from a whole other doctor was not present that night about removing bullet fragments. And again, nobody knows where these bullet fragments are to this very day. There's just been a lot of lies, a lot of cover up. And I believe this whole case has been about truth versus the politics of power. But the one thing about truth is light. You're never going to suppress it. You might keep it down for a while, but it's going to come out and it's going to shine like the sunlight.
Do you have a final
Pierce,
message?
if I could just,
yes.
Yeah, if I could just follow up and say this, also to the reason why Mr. Lanez couldn't speak publicly to this is there's a gag order that was placed on him by the team bringing charges, and when you don't have the ability to speak, that sends a pretty powerful message. And so part of my job is representing not just my constituents, but also ensuring that this doesn't happen in the future, and that's not right. So I'll speak the truth for him, and I'm going off facts. I'm presenting the evidence, and the people will decide. And I hope that Gavin Newsom does the right thing.
Okay, and just final question for you.